Okay, so first I'll be discussing my research process. So in 1301, we had our sources already given to us. It was a few articles. And in English 1302, we had to go out and look for our own secondary sources. I didn't think searching for secondary sources would take long and that there was good and bad sources that would be useful for our research. So there was a process that we had to do. It was creating a crap sheet for each source. So we had to come up with 4 to 6 secondary sources. So this is an example of a good secondary source. This is my crap sheet, which is currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. So what that means is that currency, what is the timeliness of the information? Basically, when was the secondary source created? So this one was created in 2015. It did contain older information, but it wasn't old information from 1990 or anything. Relevance, the importance of the information for your needs. Basically, if it was relating to our topic. So this one did relate to my topic, and it answered my question on how male and female serial killers differ from each other while searching for a victim or why they kill them. It did tell me who the audience was. And for accuracy, meaning how reliable, truthful, and correct the content is, my information did come from Washington Post. It was supported by numerous evidence, which was good. It didn't have that much errors, and it wasn't that much of a biased site. So, purpose, the reasoning for the information, it was to inform the audience about who has been murdered and informs us about the differences between male and female. And it also teaches the audience that there can be women serial killers. So this one is an example of a good secondary source. And an example of a bad secondary source is this one right here. The reasoning that this is a bad secondary source is because what to avoid when looking for secondary sources, you should avoid blogs because they are very biased and it's just someone else's opinion, so it's really not that helpful, or it's just one person's opinion, it's not others or numerous people's. So when I created the crap sheet for this blog, I noticed that it was not helpful at all and it was lacking a lot of stuff compared to the first one. So for currency, it was in 2013. It hadn't been updated. It did include older information. For relevance, it gave me the male and female differences, but the audience was mainly for bloggers who wanted to be informed with murder. And it wasn't that much advanced. The information wasn't much advanced. It was kind of like elementary-ish. I did know who the publisher was, but it didn't give me much about her, if she was educated enough and qualified enough to write on the topic. Like, she didn't know much about it. It was a blog site. I didn't know if it was reviewed by anybody else. It was very much biased, so that's what made me not want to do it anymore. And then the purpose, it was just to inform. She made her purpose clear, but it was both fact and opinion. Like, it wasn't anything else. And then, so this basically was not a good source at all. So what I had to do was I had to find another secondary source that would back up my information and be able to help me. So these are other examples of my other secondary sources. This one was a book. The author was Kathleen Hyde. She was a major in psychology. She had her PhD. It gave me all her email, her phone number, her room number. This was another one of my secondary sources. So what I learned from my research process is that you have to be careful with what secondary sources you use or which secondary sources you find, because there's a lot of websites that can be changed or people can change them themselves. And honestly, making a crap sheet for your secondary sources is very useful. I found it very helpful, and it made it easier to know what I was looking for, and then adding little notes about the situation, the claim, the evidence, the audience, the purpose, and then getting quotes from the secondary sources. For my next question, which is peer feedback processes, I honestly really don't like I never really liked getting feedback from my peers because I always got shitty information and feedback from them. I would just get, oh, you misspelled something, oh, error here. So this is an example of my feedback from my peers. I had trouble making this area a bit more longer and clearer for my audience. So I did get a few feedback from Carlos Delgado and Emily Lopez. They gave me feedback on what I can do to make this area a bit better and more helpful for my audience to understand. Also, in another area, which is my conclusion, I had trouble making it where it sounded better and where my audience can get a better understanding of what I wanted them to get from my stuff. So they helped me with that, and they provided me with a bit of examples instead of telling me what I did wrong. They just helped me by giving me a few examples on what I can add or what I can take out. Also, I asked Bonnie for a little bit help here too. So what she did is that she told me I can take away a sentence and what I need to focus on more and what I should talk about in it more. So basically what I did from my feedback, I understood what they were trying to say. So what I did is I went back to all my paragraphs, the ones I needed help in, and I fixed whatever they told me to fix. And I find this feedback a bit more helpful because they're guiding me on what I can do and what can help me make it more understanding for my audience, instead of just telling me that I misspelled a word or I could have done this. So for getting feedback from them, I told them what I was having trouble with. So right here, I told them I'm having trouble making this more in depth, longer, and clear. I included what I found out during my research and have not added more. What can I add to make it more clear and not so short and to the point? Also, can you give me a few examples on what to put? So Emily here, she told me, for example, when you talked about your secondary sources, you can be more elaborate and state examples as to how They were different and alike from each other. She put, to be elaborative, you can say my own documentary experiment was far more different than the secondary sources I had looked into. For example, in blank blank, they stated blank, and what I found was the complete opposite. So she gave me an example of what I can do instead of telling me something that I had already done. And Carlos gave me an example as well. He put, for example, why some serial killers like strangling their victims, and what do they think are other types of modus operandi for other serial killers. Also, why do you think both genders have no soul? What makes you think that? So I basically included all this stuff that they said I can put into my paragraphs, and I did that. Going back to my sources, for my primary sources, it was a little bit hard for me because I was doing it based off serial killers, so obviously I wasn't going to go to a jail and interview serial killers. So what I did was I went on YouTube and I did documentary analysis. So this is one of them. It is Ted Bundy's documentary in his own words. Here's another one, Edmund Kemper in his own words. The reason I did videos that say in his own words is because I wanted to be able to hear from the serial killer themselves about how they felt when they would kill their victims or who they would go for. It's better to hear from the person themselves than to hear from someone that wasn't there during that experience, because maybe something they said isn't correct, it's false, it's a lie. So when you're looking for your own primary research, you have to be real careful on what videos you get, especially on documentary analysis. This one is a full movie. It's an hour long, and it's her saying some words about her experience, and also this one too. For my next question, learning with peers, we were in groups, so I was with Bianca, Alexis, and Yesenia. We didn't have the same topics, but we did help each other out with what kind of topics we should go for, what we should do. Also, basically the same thing from our feedbacks. I feel like learning with peers is more helpful because you get other people's views on what to put. You get their thoughts on better ideas. When one day Bonnie put us into groups so we can get feedback on what our solution can be. So I was put with two people, and they gave me feedback on a few solutions. One was a board game, and the other one was a card game. So that kind of helped me get an idea on what I should do for my solution. So I came up with a game, Headbands. It's where you wear a headband on your head and you pick a card and you choose a card and you have to guess who you have on your head, and it's a serial killer. You get to ask questions until time runs out. And also, learning with my peers is my feedback as well. Carlos and Emily gave me useful feedback on what I can do. It actually helped me with my essay and with my paragraphs to be more elaborate and inform my audience a bit more and make it easier. So this is all their feedback. And well, that's it. That's all my 3 questions. Thank you.